I was flying around the world in my solar airplane, I remember looking at the sun that was giving energy to my 4 electric motors and their huge propellers. There was no noise, no pollution, no fuel, and I could fly forever. At a certain moment I thought, this is science fiction, I am in the future. And then I realized, no, it's wrong. I am in the present. This is what the technologies of today already allow me to do so. It's the rest of the world that is in the past and with old and inefficient devices, is what Dr. Bertrand Piccard said. A very good evening to one and all present here. Today, we are extremely happy to have Dr. Bertrand Piccard, an environmentalist, global influencer, and architect of Solar Impulse with us. Dr. Bertrand Piccard hails from a family with the legacy of scientific exploration and protection of the environment. With his dual identities as psychiatrist and explorer, he constantly sets out to challenge centritudes and habits and advocates for a pioneering spirit to solve the challenges of our times. Bridging the gap between ecology and economy was his vision that led to the creation of Solar Impulse, the first round-the-world solar flight powered by only sun with no fuel or polluting emission. The technology used in Solar Impulse demonstrated that clean technologies and renewable energy can achieve the impossible. Electrical motors with 97% efficiency, LED lamps for lighting system, extremely efficient insulation foam reducing energy consumption for houses, lightweight materials are just a few examples of solutions that can be used not only in the air but also on the ground. Over the years, Dr. Piccard has become an influential voice heard amongst the most distinguished institutions across the globe as a leader for progress and sustainability. Through the World Alliance for Efficient Solutions, Dr. Piccard wants to federate the actors of the field in clean technologies and shed light on existing efficient solutions to fast-track their implementation. A new innovative and pioneering adventure has begun. Together, we can improve the quality of life on Earth. Let us now watch a short video clip.
Achieving the first solar flight around the world. This is the story of two men. Bertrand Piccard, psychiatrist and explorer, and André Boschberg, engineer and entrepreneur. A team driven by a vision of the future and a passion for innovation. And the first airplane of perpetual endurance, able to fly day and night without fuel. Together with their partners, they wanted to show the power of pioneering spirit and clean technologies to bring solutions for a better world. Solar Impulse, the adventure showing that change is possible.
It's a bit the moment of truth, because you simulate, you calculate, you imagine, but there is nothing like testing and doing it in real. We deeply believe that we can achieve impossible and incredible things with renewable energies, like flying around the world with no fuel. And if this works, of course, everybody can do it on the ground to make a cleaner world. And this can be your way to be with us in the plane.
And this was a scene in Abu Dhabi early this Monday.
Dans ce journal également,
on its way to Melbourne. This ultralight plane is powered only by the sun's rays.
Between March and July 2015, Bertrand Piccard and André Borschberg flew without a drop of fuel from Abu Dhabi to Oman, across the Arabian Sea to India, Myanmar, China, Japan, and over the Pacific to Hawaii.
How are you feeling after all that time? You broke a world record in terms of solo flight a few hours ago.
Resuming the round-the-world adventure in April 2016, Solar Impulse continued from Hawaii to California and New York, across the Atlantic to Spain, then Egypt, and made it back successfully to Abu Dhabi in July. Today the challenge is no longer to conquer the moon, the challenge is to conquer quality of life on Earth. Our world desperately needs the implementation of clean technologies to reduce the energy consumption and the waste of natural resources.
Hotel India Bravo, turning final, 02 right.
This airplane was not built to carry passengers, but to carry a message. The world could reduce half of its CO2 emissions by replacing old polluting devices with new clean technologies, like those used on Solar Impulse.
I am inspired by your pioneering spirit.
You know, Mr. Secretary General, if an airplane like Solar Impulse can fly day and night without fuel, the world, of course, can be much cleaner.
Inspiring generations, promoting innovative solutions to the challenges of humanity, inventing a brighter future. Solar energy made it possible to fly many days and nights in a row without fuel, crossing 2 oceans and remaining airborne longer than any jet plane in history. 2016 has seen the completion of this pioneering adventure, flying 40,000 kilometers round the world without a single drop of fuel.
Than an achievement in the history of aviation, Solar Impulse has made an achievement in the history of energy. Let's take it further.
Like Solar Impulse, the clean tech revolution has taken off, presenting new ways of thinking and doing to achieve the impossible. And you can be a part of it.
Amazing video. Thank you so much for the video. Today, in fact, we feel privileged to have Dr. Bertrand Piccard amongst us for a prestigious lecture and an interactive session. On behalf of Ramaiah University of Applied Sciences, I extend a hearty welcome to him. I request our Vice Chancellor, Professor S.R. Shankapal, to welcome him with a bouquet.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. Great. Good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for this invitation at the Ramaiah University. You are teachers or students, postgraduates. You are young, you are in the beginning of a lot of dreams. And I don't know if you've noticed that each time that we speak about big dreams, we hear a lot of people who say it's impossible. Why? we ask, why is it impossible? And very often we get the most stupid answer that we can ever get. It's impossible because nobody has done it before. This is absurd. It should be exactly the opposite. It's precisely because it has never been done before that we have to try. Otherwise, it will always remain impossible. So how do we go from the dream, from the vision, to the reality? People thought that solar impulse was impossible before we did it. Which shows that the impossible is in the head of the people, not in the reality. So it's really interesting to see what is the obstacle that we have in our head. Well, usually, the obstacle is what we have learned, what we believe, what we do, everything that comes to certitudes, to paradigms. And this is what we have to change if we want to innovate and to be more creative. I will give you an example. When the father of my grandfather installed the first telephone in Switzerland. Can I please have the picture on the screen? Thank you. When the father of my grandfather installed the first telephone in Switzerland, he invited all his colleagues. He was professor in the university. And he made a demonstration. He turned the handle and he called his wife to say he would be late for lunch. And all his colleagues said, "It's very nice, but it has no future." These people were not stupid. They were big professors. Why did they believe it had no future? Because of the paradigm in those days that you need to pull a cable from every house to every house in the world. Even houses of people you don't know because maybe someday you have to call them. So it would be all the households of the world connected together with billions of cables. You could not even see the sky. Of course, you cannot do it. What was the paradigm shift? The paradigm shift was the invention of the operating center, where you had just one line from every house going to an operator who was connecting the people. So you see that the person who made the revolution in telecommunication is not the one who invented the telephone. It's the one who changed the paradigm by inventing the operating center. It was the same for the computers. The first computer was big as a house. And there was an estimate market for 5 pieces in the world. Why do we all have a computer in our smartphone today? Because of the paradigm shift of the silicon chip. This is what made it possible, not the computer, the silicon chip. So when we look at some big success in the history of exploration, like walking on the moon, climbing on the top of the Everest mountain, flying in the sky with an airplane. All this is not a new idea. Innovation is not a new idea. Innovation is a paradigm shift. And what was the paradigm that allowed, what was the paradigm shift that allowed all these things to happen? It was not technology. You know, the first airplane was made out of cloth and wood. Humankind could have flown 10,000 years ago. Why didn't they do it? They did not do it because it was prohibited by the mythology. Only the gods were allowed to fly. And of course, the birds, who were the holy animals. In the Renaissance in Europe, 500 years ago, Leonardo da Vinci built airplane models. They could have flown, but he was not stupid enough to try. He would have been tortured and burned by the church. When you see the Everest mountain, you know, Indians, Tibetans, Nepalese, they saw the summit of the Everest mountain for thousands of years, but they were not allowed to profanate the holy mountain. So the paradigm shift occurred in the beginning of the 20th century when you had explorers who said, we don't care about these rules anymore. We're going to push everything away and try. And in 66 years, which is really short in the history of humankind, you have the first airplane, the South Pole, the North Pole, the Everest Mountain, the Mariana Trench, and the moon. Showing what? Showing that innovation is not when you have a new idea. Innovation is when you throw out an old belief. And then you are free in your heart and free in your brain to be able to create something completely new. When I wanted to fly around the world in a balloon in 1999, it was exactly the same thing. All the experts told me you cannot do it because we had to fly during 3 weeks, and the balloon that had flown the longest with gas was 6 days, and with hot air was 2 days. So of course, if you look at it like this, you think it's impossible. So we had to make a new type of balloon that was a hybrid balloon, flying with helium during the day and with burners during the night. And we could fly 20 days non-stop. But of course, when we landed, it was the absolute limit of what we could do with fuel. I took off with 3.7 tons of liquid propane and landed with 40 kilos in the last fuel tank. You see the limit here with the frost. And for 20 days, I was afraid of falling short of gas. So of course, as an explorer, as a pioneer, I wanted to achieve more. But more you can do only if you get rid of the fuel. The fuel is the limit. You can never do more than what you have with the fuel. But imagine you get rid of the fuel. Imagine you fly with renewable energy. Then theoretically you could fly forever. So I did not dare to speak about it to a lot of people until the capsule of my balloon was brought to the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in Washington, together with the spacecraft and the airplanes of the heroes of my childhood. And then it became quite obvious for me that there had been a complete cycle in aviation, going from the first airplane to the moon landing, through the speed of sound and transport of hundreds of people across oceans. We had achieved a complete cycle. And maybe we could start a new cycle with another paradigm on solar power and no fuel. So what I had at this moment in my hands was an artist's view of what could be a solar-powered airplane that could collect energy from the sun, transform it into electricity in photovoltaic solar cells, feed electric motors, and store the surplus into batteries to be able to fly at night. So you take off, and you never need to land. If you land, it's only to change the pilot. But you can fly as long as you want. From this vision, this dream, to the reality of the success that you have seen on the movie, there were several steps and several experiences that I made that I would like to share with you. Because I'm sure that if you have a big project, you will go through the same steps. So it's maybe useful for you to understand what happened. The first thing that is really important to understand is that you should not wait to have the support of everybody before you start. Otherwise, you will never start. You will never have the support of everybody at the beginning. So you need to find just one person or one institution or one university that will give you the credibility. In my case, it was the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, the EPFL, in Lausanne. There has been a turnaround at that university, going from building bridges and tunnels into life science. It was interesting to see that this turnaround was made by a new president of this engineering school, which was not an engineer, it was a medical doctor. And the vice president was a biologist. So they came from the outside and changed everything. And they had 18 labs who had never worked together. So this feasibility study became an opportunity to turn the vision of this university into a reality by having transdisciplinary collaboration and synergy between all the parts of the university. And this is the second observation that I want to share with you. Nobody is going to give you support for free. It needs to be a win-win. If somebody helps you, you have to help him. So in our case, the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology gave me the credibility, organized this feasibility study, but at the same time, from Solar Impulse, they got this opportunity to work with all the labs together. So we run for 9 months this study. By the way, it was André who was leading this study. That's how I met him. And at the end of the 9 months, what did we have? We had some calculations showing that it would only be possible to fly around the world on solar power if we had an airplane that was 72-meter wingspan. That's bigger than a Boeing 747 jumbo jet, bigger. But the weight had to be lighter than a family car, and the power available was the one of a scooter. You imagine the size of the challenge. And this is the moment where I told to the EPFL, we have to make a press conference and announce that we're going to fly around the world. And at this moment, they told me, Bertrand, don't you think it's a little bit too early? We have nothing. We have no money. We have no technology. We have no team. And this is the third rule. The third rule. Commit yourself publicly if you want to do something. Burn the bridges behind you. Because when you are in the small office with a huge problem, it's very tempting to give up. But if everybody knows that you're doing something, you can never give up. Never. So we made the press conference. There were pictures on CNN, and I remember I told to André, now we're condemned to succeed. There is no way back. And I think that was a big motivation, an incentive for engineers to join our team, for partners to fund this project, and we could start to work. But how do you work to do something that has never been done before? Don't believe that you will be smarter than everybody else. No. You cannot just be a genius that does something that nobody has done. You need to work with people who are different than you, completely different, and these people will bring additional ideas, will challenge you. And this is a very important thing when you want to create. Don't work with people who are similar. People who think like you, it's like 1 + 1 = 1. You add as many people as you can, but it's always the same solution, the same idea, and the same strategy. Useless. If you work with people who are different, it's 1 + 1 = 3. This is why I asked André to partner with me and to run the project together with me. Because it would make André, me, and both of us. And both of us, that's the addition of completely other experiences. We worked without trying to be the one who was right. We worked by trying to understand why the other one had a completely other solution. And it was never his solution or my solution that was good. It was the combination of both, making the third solution. So we started to be really creative together, challenging our certitudes, challenging our beliefs, and the entire team was built like this, with very different people coming from very different horizons. And after 3 or 4 years, we had a plastic model of Solar Impulse. 4-meter wingspan, small model, just to show how it would look like. And we were really proud. We had the definitive design. And we were naive enough to believe that the world of aviation would be desperate to get the contract to build this plane. Not at all. They were laughing. They told us an airplane that is so big and so light will never fly. It's outside of the flight domain that we know. Nobody has done it, so you cannot do it. So in the beginning, we felt a little bit bad, like Dumbo. You remember Dumbo? With the big ears that were trailing on the ground and everybody making fun of him until he could deploy his ears and fly. And because of his handicap, he became the hero of the circus. It's what we had to do. We had to deploy our wings. Deploy our wings that were so big that we had enough surface for the solar cells, that they were so light that we needed very little energy to fly. And we had such a big aspect ratio that the aerodynamic performance was excellent. And we could have Solar Impulse fly only because these wings were so big and so light. So why did we succeed when the specialists thought we could not? You have to understand that the structure in carbon fiber had to be 10 times lighter proportionally to the size, 10 times lighter than the structure of the best competition sailplane or glider. So you imagine that all the constructors would say, you are completely crazy, 10 times lighter, we can never do it. How did we do? How did we manage that? If the experts thought it was impossible, we had to find people who did not know it was impossible. And we found a shipyard. The shipyard who built the hulls of Alinghi, the two ships from Switzerland who won the America's Cup twice, 2003, 2007. So of course, if you have a country like Switzerland who has no access to the sea, winning the America's Cup twice, it means that the constructor of the boat is really good. And we wanted that constructor. So we went to see him with André, and the guy said, of course I can do your airplane as light as you want with my techniques of carbon fiber. But your engineers, they don't know how to use carbon fiber, so I cannot work with them. And our engineers said, you are crazy or what? This shipyard, they never made an airplane. We cannot work with them. And it took 2 years to André to make a team with these two extremes and to make the 1 and 1 equal 3. A shipyard who had never built a plane, aeronautical engineers who had no idea about carbon fiber, and the result was a completely revolutionary airplane that nobody thought was possible. For the funding, it was exactly the same problem than for the construction. In the beginning, I thought that the world of aviation would fund the project, but not at all. And I think I made a mistake. Actually, I should have put for free the name of all the airlines and all the airplane constructors on Solar Impulse wings and fuselage. And they would have paid me a fortune to remove their name, because they were so afraid that we would crash and make bad publicity for them. So finally, who came? Companies who had nothing to do with aviation, nothing to do with energy. Insurances, elevators, watches, industry, telecommunication, Google, engineering companies. Of course, champagne also, but that was not for the plane, it was for the team. And I have to say that I was a bit disappointed in the beginning to be unable to motivate the specialists to come on board this project. And after a few reflections, I remembered that it was not the people who were selling the best candles who invented the light bulb. It's completely other people. Like in the automotive industry, the first attractive electric car was not made by a car manufacturer. It was made by a billionaire from the world of internet who had no idea how to make a car. And he took what he knew, computer screen, and built the Tesla around it. And now you have cars that are cheap, that are electric, that are affordable for everybody. So you see that very often, innovation comes from outside the system. And why that? Because the system teaches us to think that way. The system teaches us to have knowledge, to have expertise, to have certitudes, to have convictions, to have scientific proofs, and to ignore the doubts, the question marks, the problems, the uncertainty, and the mysteries of life. So we try to reach our goals in a straight line. We don't look left and right what might challenge our convictions, and when we hit an obstacle, then we are done. Then we are lost. And we ask, why is life so bad with me? Instead of asking to ourselves, why am I not ready for life? So how should we be ready for life? Well, we should be ready to understand that we have to learn to think in every direction. We have to learn to think in every direction, not just one. This is what I learned in my family of explorers. My grandfather made the highest flight, the first in the stratosphere with the invention of the pressurized cabin. My father went to the deepest spot in the ocean. I met a lot of astronauts when I was a child, divers, explorers. And what came out from my observation is that they were normal people. They were not supermen. They were normal people who knew how to challenge themselves to find new solutions. They had dreams and they had the faculty to fulfill their dreams. Which means that I started to ask questions all the time as a kid, and I was allowed to do so. So I was a nightmare for my teachers in school, because I never accepted to do or to think anything without knowing why I had to understand, believe, or do something. And I never got from anybody around me these stupid answers like, you have to do it, you have to believe it, it's like this, don't ask so much questions. No. The type of answers I got were sometimes, we don't know. And maybe if you think about it, you might find an answer. You might discover a reason, an explanation. So the education I got was the education of a pioneer, of an explorer, somebody who knew that knowledge was a small part of the reality. Of course you need knowledge, that's for sure, but it's a small part of the reality. So many other things exist, and we also have to know about it, other theories, other scientific explanations, or sometimes mystical or esoteric explanations, or spiritual explanations. Sometimes some phenomenon that we cannot explain, but they exist. Science is important to try to understand, but it is not because we don't understand that it does not exist. So each time that we want to do something, we have to allow ourselves to think in every direction, to know that every option is open. And maybe a way to explain that is by understanding how a balloon works. For me, ballooning is a philosophy of life. It's not a sport. Because in a balloon, when you are pushed by the wind, you are prisoner of the wind. You always go in the same direction, at the same speed than the wind. And you can cry, pray, or swear. It will never change anything in the direction of the wind. The only way to steer another direction is to change your altitude. Because each layer of wind in the atmosphere has another direction. So if you want to go more to the left or more to the right, you have to go higher or lower. In other words, you have to change altitude to change your direction. And I think in life, it's exactly the same. In life, we have these moments with our dreams, our visions, our hopes, our targets, but the winds of life don't allow us to reach them. What are the winds of life? It's everything we cannot control. It's accidents, sicknesses, human problems, financial crisis, political decisions, economical rules, all the things outside of our control. They push us very often toward the unknown, and we're afraid, and we lose control, and we don't know what to do. And we have to change altitude in the winds of life. We have to change altitude in our education, in our training, in our understanding of life, in our psychological, philosophical, or spiritual understanding of life. And if we do that, we will reach other levels, other influences, other solutions, other answers, other strategies that will necessarily allow us to change our direction. But to make it practical, it should not be just a poetic metaphor, change altitude in the winds of life to have another vision of the world. That's not enough. We have to go further, really practical. And for this, we have to understand how a balloon works. If you want to change altitude in a balloon, you have to drop ballast. You have to drop weight. So it can be empty bottles of propane, can be bags of sand, can be reserves of water or food, if possible, over unpopulated areas. It's always better. But what I mean is that each time you drop a few kilos, you climb a few meters. And you write down on your logbook, for each altitude, which direction the GPS is giving. And at the end, when you monitor the entire atmosphere, you have an absolutely clear prediction of the future in 3 dimensions. You know exactly for which altitude you will go in which direction. And then you will stabilize the balloon at the altitude that has the direction that you want to reach. It's the same in life. The same in life. In life, we have a lot of ballast. But the problem is that the ballast is what we learn to keep on board and not to throw overboard. What's our ballast? Safety, certitudes, paradigms, dogmas, convictions, beliefs, exclamation marks. And we believe it will make us strong. No, it makes us heavy. Doesn't make us strong. It makes us stiff and heavy. So when you see people with strong convictions, don't follow them. They always go in a straight line. You have to follow people who have doubts, people who know that there are several possibilities. You need this tolerance to the unknown and to the uncertainty. You need to open yourself to other ways of thinking. If you have a religion, you have to understand the religions of others in order to understand your religion better. If you are in a political party, you have to take what is good in the other political parties also, not just fight for what you stand for. There is good things everywhere, in every party, in every religion, in every way to think. There are good ways that you can integrate in your strategy. We have to be humble, we have to be tolerant, we have to be open, we have to be flexible. So you see that it becomes very practical. If we want to be creative and successful, we need to identify what we deeply believe and try something else. This is what I mean by dropping certitudes, by dropping ballast in our life. We have to observe that each time we want to do something, we want to answer something, we want to react to something, we have an automatic answer that comes, that goes in one direction. This is not intuition, this is automatism. That's like a robot, always the same reaction for the same stimulus. If you stop there and say, oof, instead of always doing that, what would happen if I try something else? Then you have this opening, this awareness to the world. Then you say that between the two extremes you have thousands of other solutions. And one of them will be better. And at this moment, you can challenge what you have learned and adapt it to the reality of what you want to do. It makes life like a firework. You have the future in 3 dimensions. Like here, for every spot, for every way to think, for every behavior, you have another line, another direction, another outcome, another result. You have failure or you have success. It's up to us to decide what we want to think. And this is freedom. Because the freedom is not when we can do everything. We can never do everything. But we can think everything. Think in every direction. Look at all the options here. And then you retain the one that leads you in the good direction. This is what we had to do with Solar Impulse. This is how we invented the first airplane of perpetual endurance flying without fuel. And I can tell you that it was completely magical to fly in that plane. It's exactly what was said in the introduction. It's magical to fly with the sun, to have no noise, to have no fuel, to emit no particles, no pollution, no CO2, and to understand that this is what the technologies of today allow us to do today. And then you ask, but why is the world so much in the past with all technologies? Why that? Well, because the world goes on a straight line. The world goes on habit, on automatic behavior. So we had oil for 100 years and we think it will last forever. We polluted the planet for 100 years and we think we can continue forever. And we forget completely the consequence of our erratic behavior. So what was fascinating with Solar Impulse is the fact that all the technologies that allowed us to fly day and night without fuel are technologies that are off the shelf. You can use them for mobility, for construction of houses, for lighting, cooling, heating systems, for smart grid, for everything. If only people knew more about it. And this was the purpose of Solar Impulse. It was to demonstrate that these technologies today can be implementable everywhere. That was the purpose. And maybe this is the last rule that we need to implement if we want to do something really difficult. We need a purpose. Because nobody will work in a team for 15 years without a purpose. People did not work so much just for money, just for a salary. They did not just glue carbon fiber together or welded electric wires. No, they had the purpose of being an ambassador for renewable energies and clean technologies. And it's exactly like somebody taking bricks to make a wall. It can be a horrible job to put bricks on top of each other for our entire life. Except if we understand that the purpose is to build a house in which a family will come and grow the children. Suddenly you are not making a wall. You are building the dream of a family for its future. So each time you wake up in the morning, ask to yourself, what is the purpose of what you are doing? If you don't find the purpose, maybe you have to change what you're doing. And if you are doing something you like, the purpose will come. The purpose is always something that is bigger than just the action you have. Why do you do it? In which intention? And how will the rest of the world benefit from it? It can be yourself, your family, your community, your country, your company. You need to include a broader picture in what you're doing. And I believe that this is why we succeeded. Because of the purpose. This is only a little half of the team. We had 150 people all together. These people have followed the plane around the world. The others were in the control center in Monaco or in Switzerland for the back office. So what we wanted to show with our team is not just the elation of the success, but the panel in the front. Take it further. As pioneers, we did the first step. We showed what was possible. Now it's the rest of the world who has to take it further. We need electric mobility, zero energy houses, smart grids, electric airplanes, well-insulated houses. We need to change the old technologies into new technologies. And for us, taking it further is to create the World Alliance for Efficient Solutions. And this is actually why I'm here in India. I was in Mumbai for Unify Capital. I'm in Bangalore these 2 days for Swiss Next, and now in this invitation at the university to identify startups or corporations who have technical solutions, can be a process, a product, a program, or a technology, that can protect the environment in a profitable way, creating jobs, profits, sustaining growth, but a clean growth that is so much better than the dirty status quo that we have today. And these solutions have to be known, because there are a lot of solutions everywhere. But you know, each time you speak to startups, they tell you, we have solutions that are fantastic, but nobody knows about us. So what we're doing is to offer free of charge. It's a non-for-profit organization. We offer to all the members of the World Alliance, all the startups, all the corporations, we offer matchmaking with experts to gain credibility, matchmaking with investors and customers so they can grow, and we promote the first 1,000 solutions. We promote them in the media, in the public, and even much more than that, to the political world. Because today, the regulations, the targets, the energy policies, they are based on the smallest common denominator, where all the adverse parties can agree on something. It's not enough. This is based on the past. If we want to be successful in protection of the environment and fighting climate change, and at the same time create growth for the industry with new products that are cleaner and more efficient, we need to bring them on the market by pooling the innovation with legal frameworks that are ambitious. We have to create a need in the mind of everybody. So all these startups will start to sell their product, to grow, and the world will be a much better place. It will be a success if we can deal with people who accept to embrace the unknown like pioneers. And I would like to end up with this picture here, which is the last picture I did actually with the Breitling Orbiter 3 balloon when I flew around the world in 1999. It's one of the windows of our capsule. It is frozen by the moisture of the night, and on the other side you have a rising sun. But you will never see the rising sun if you don't go first through the ice. And this is what so many people are afraid to do in life. In life we have ice, we have problems, we have difficulties, we have crises, we have moments of doubts and question marks. But if we don't accept them, we'll never go further. And you have so many people who stop in front of the ice and they prefer to suffer in the problems they know, rather than to take the risk of going through the problem and see what there is on the other side. So it's clear that each time we find difficulties in our life or we are in a crisis, it is the moment that will oblige us to challenge our certitudes. It's the moment that will oblige us to drop ballast and to change altitude. So understand well what it means. If you are in a crisis, and you accept it as a way to be better, to improve yourself, to find better strategies, options, and solutions, if you accept the crisis, it will become an adventure. But if you refuse the adventure, it will always remain a crisis. And it's our decision in every moment of our life to decide if life is here to destroy us or if life is here to challenge us. And if we take the challenge, if we accept to be explorers, if we accept to be pioneers and discover new ways of doing and new ways of thinking, even if life is difficult, it will become interesting. And that's really what I wish for all of you, the teachers, professors, to spread this message to all the students, and to the students to try to implement it in your life. I wish you all the best. Good luck to everyone.
I'm sure after seeing his presentation and listening to the talk, we all would be feeling that there's a big world which is yet to be explored and to be dreamt of. And we have not even seen an iota of that particular world. And now, without wasting again time, I leave this session open to the audience to ask questions. And I'm sure you will have many questions to ask. Can we have the first question to Professor Narhari?
Yeah, it works.
Bonjour, monsieur. Thank you for your excellent presentation. And as a person who tries to teach aircraft design to my students, I have a couple of curious questions. What is the endurance you estimated? I know it's perpetual because it's completely flying on fuel, but based on your physical stamina, what is it you expected to withstand? How many hours?
What we expect?
How many hours could you withstand physically? The endurance, human endurance, rather than...
Human endurance? You know, when you have passion, you can extend a lot your personal endurance. For André and for me, it was never too long to be in that airplane. But now, the goal, clearly, is not to have airplanes that will just fly with one person around the world several times. The goal will be to have electric airplanes that don't need to make their own electricity with the sun. They can be plugged on the grid. The solar panels can be on the roof of the airport. And then you charge the batteries and you transport 50 people on short-haul flights. And this will be affordable and available in less than 10 years' time. And it will be a way to serve airports that are close to cities with no noise, with no pollution, landing at night. In terms of regulation, it will be much easier. So the goal is not for us to fly longer, it's to make it more available for everybody.
Yeah, shorter distance with more passengers. Another quick question. What is the aspect ratio of the wing you have used?
I don't remember by heart the aspect ratio. But it's 72 meters, and you have 3 meters or 2.5 meters as an average in the cord, in the string of the wing.
What is the lift-drag ratio you estimated through calculations, and what do you think you achieved?
The glide ratio was 37, but we did not care about the glide ratio. What gives the need for energy is not the glide ratio, it's the sink rate.
Yeah.
So we needed a very low sink rate, and we had 28 centimeters per second. The best gliders, they have 50 centimeters per second, so we were almost twice better. And we needed so little energy to fly that the batteries that were loaded during the day flight were enough to go through the night.
Okay. So your glide
so
angle
you see, here again, it's something people have to understand. The goal is not always to produce more energy. The goal is to be efficient enough to save the energy that we use.
So continuing on what you just said, so you said that the goal is efficiency and it's not about more power. So India has set a very ambitious goal for itself. We plan to generate nearly 100 gigawatts of energy from solar by the year 2022. And the biggest problem we're facing right now is the efficiency. So what was the type of efficiency that you were dealing with in your solar panels? And what would you suggest would be a cheap alternative? Because, as you said, cost and the finances are equally important.
You have ways to produce energy, and you have ways to save it. You will produce energy with solar panels. Maybe they will go up to 30 or 35% efficiency. That's possible. You will produce with wind. You will produce electricity with biomass, with hydro power, or with geothermia. So this is the amount of energy you will produce. But if you waste it, with the type of systems we have today, who waste between 90 and 50% of the energy, we'll never have enough. And this is where we have to work. You know, you have this big fan turning up there. I met 2 startups in India, one in Mumbai, one in Bangalore, who is bringing on the market fans like this, with the same type of engines than the one we had on Solar Impulse, brushless motors. They use they use the quarter of the energy of a normal fan. All the world is like this. All the world is based on old technologies. So every single device that can use energy can use it with a huge saving. And we have to work on both. When you walk, you have 2 legs. If you deal with energy, you have the leg of the production, the leg of the energy saving. And both have to match. Otherwise, it will not work. And the place where you have the most profit to do, the most job creation is the efficiency.
Thank you.
Excuse me, how many planes are made? I saw there were 2 planes, no? You made 1 plane or 2 planes or many?
We built 2 planes. Because the first one was a prototype, and we had to train to build an airplane that was so light and so big. So we did the first plane much more easily. There was no autopilot, no toilets. The pilot couldn't sleep on board and so on. And when it worked, we crossed America with it, we crossed Europe, we flew to Morocco, and then we built the second one, that was the one for around the world.
Hello. I understand that you're a member of the Swiss Hypnotic Society. I was curious to know whether you have performed controlled experiments related to hypnotism.
Related to?
Hypnotism.
Yes. So it's true that originally I'm a medical doctor, I'm a psychiatrist, because I wanted to explore the behavior of human beings. I wanted to understand why some people are successful or unsuccessful, why some people are depressed or fulfilled. And when I was a student, I was told you have to follow only the official teaching. Nothing else. No hypnosis, no acupuncture, no homeopathy, no Chinese medicine, no Ayurvedic medicine, no shamanic medicine. So of course I tried everything. Because if somebody tells me not to do, I will try. I think in my life the only thing I have never tried and I will never try in the future is drugs. Because drugs gives no benefit. But everything else you have to try and see if it matches with what you like to obtain and what you like to reach. So I made a deep training in hypnosis. I used it for my balloon flight. It was very successful, and I used it on Solar Impulse. You know, hypnosis, in 2 words, is a way to turn toward the inside the focus that you have. Normally, you focus on the outside. You see, you hear, you smell, you touch. It's always turned on the outside. And you can return this awareness to the inside by different techniques in order for you to manage much more your emotions, your stress, your tensions, your whatever. So I learned, for example, to develop the inner safety, but maybe like in meditation. But in meditation, you experience it on the spot. With hypnosis, you can project it with visualization on other moments. So I trained to transport my inner safety into the visualization of all the problems. If I had to jump from the balloon, if the plane would be on fire and things like that, in order to avoid being in panic. And it helped me also to sleep a little bit in the plane, 20 minutes, naps, and also not to sleep when I was not allowed to sleep, and to have the circulation of energy that was really energizing me, so I did not lost my awareness or fall into sleep when I was really tired. And it worked very, very well.
May we have some questions from the audience sitting in behind?
Good evening, Doctor.
Hi.
What were the commercial obstacles that you had to face while implementing Solar Impulse, and what are the future commercial obstacles that you think that we as students
commercial applications?
Commercial aspects or obstacles that you have to get
Obstacles.
through. Exactly.
I would say that everything was an obstacle in the beginning because it had never been done. There was no benchmark, and we had to invent everything. Not only the design and the technology, but the certification of the plane, the flight permissions, the meteorological conditions in which we could fly, the procedures, everything was new. And I think there is one sentence which is the one I pronounced the most during these 15 years of the project, for me every morning and for the team at least once a week. It's the following sentence: if it was easy, somebody else would have done it. So it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, where you know that the more problems you have, the more pioneering you need to be. And for the team, that was the challenge. These guys, they were proud to solve problems. But you cannot imagine how many problems there was. But they solved all these problems. Well, it took 15 years, but it worked.
Thank you.
Next question, please.
While flying a first time in the plane, did you carry any auxiliary life-saving, like parachute?
If we had a parachute.
Did you carry that first time when you started?
Yeah, we
flying?
carried a parachute.
Yeah, that
we carried a life raft.
Right.
And we always had the harness with the parachute and the life raft on, except to go to the toilet.
Okay.
But even for sleeping, we were keeping this on our shoulders.
Yes. Then which part of the plane that you had a doubt that this may leads to a life-threatening or...
The plane would not break in the air because it was tested like a commercial airplane, 3.5 Gs plus, 1.5 Gs minus. So it was solid, but it was strong. But the main problem was in the turbulence. You could, with such a big wingspan and such a slow speed, if you have a steep bank, you lose control. You go into a spin. And this plane would never have gone out of the spin. So that was one thing that was really dangerous. The other one was the fact that you could have a battery burning or an engine burning. And in this case, you have the entire wing that is melting. And you have to jump quickly. And the third thing that could have happened is if ever we had a problem with engines or batteries and did not have enough energy at the end of the night to continue the flight. You cannot ditch in an ocean, you would be electrocuted. So in this case, we would put the dry suit on and jump and say goodbye to the plane. The plane would have flown quietly and you would have jumped down.
Thank you.
I want to know, you see, being all these things a product of science and mathematics, all the way through, and very experiment to start with right from design to the successful conclusion of whatever the goal that you wanted to reach. Was it a completely checked mathematical and scientific process?
Yes.
or at any point of time, you had something to look back and see whether this would be, the very mathematical derivatives or the formulas or the logarithms and all those things was checked, rechecked and reconfirmed, and that you were ready to do that sort of a thing.
So it was a combination between challenging our certitudes, trying other physical rules, and also checking everything with mathematical programs. So the entire construction of the structure was made with finite elements. It was made on CATIA, the program from Dassault System. And it was absolutely amazing how the plane was built. We had layers of carbon fiber that were 3 times lighter than the sheet of a paper coming from a printer. And if you orient the fibers of carbon in the right way, you can avoid to put too much. So it was built on calculation, and then it was tested, and if it worked, we continued. If not, we changed. So there is also one moment where we had the entire spar made, 72 meters. It was built during 6 months by a dozen of people. It was cured in the oven 64 times. It was like the spine of the wing, and when we tested it, it broke. It broke on the ground. Because, well, you always have problems when you do something new. So we had to rebuild it, redesign it, rebuild it, and then it worked. So it was always a question of experimental testing and very, very sophisticated calculation.
Now we had excellent questions regarding the aircraft and the problems faced by him. Now I would request the audience to ask some questions related to 1000 solutions. Yes?
Yes, sir. So as we all know, climate change is the most, like the largest problem that we as a generation are facing. But certain people don't believe in climate change. Like few days ago, Donald Trump tweeted out saying that he needed global warming on the East Coast because it was really cold. Yeah, so he, and I'm pretty sure many other lawmakers, don't understand like the impact of climate change. And my question to you is, how could we convince lawmakers and the public in general like to take up the fight against climate change and inspire people to take up the fight against climate change?
I think when you want to speak to somebody, you have to speak his language. And you cannot speak the language of climate change to people who don't believe in it. You need to change the paradigm. So when I speak to climate change deniers or to people who don't care about the environment, I speak about finance, economy, and industry. And I show that the solutions that the clean technologies are offering are the best way to have more growth. Because today, if we don't have a lot of growth, if the economy of the world is quite flat, it's because people have no reason to consume something else. They have, most of the people, they have what they can afford. They will not change their car if it's not for something better. They will not change their house if it's not for something better. So if you can give new devices, new cars, new houses, new heating systems, cooling systems, lighting, fans, or whatever, where you save money, where you are break-even after a couple of years and then all the rest is pure profit, people will replace their old device by a new device. And this will create growth. So if you speak about this to people who don't care about the environment, they can listen to you. You know, once I was in the parliament talking to the right wing in Switzerland, people who really don't care about the environment and don't believe in climate change, don't believe in renewable energies. And I went there and I said, I'm here to speak about job creation and industrial development. And the guy looked at me and said, so that's interesting, let's talk together. I was afraid that you would speak about protection of the environment. You see, so you have to see which is the channel where you can touch the people you want to speak to. And today, the goal is not to be ecological, the goal is to be logical. What is logical is to replace all the old polluting stuff by clean techs.
Dr. Bertrand?
There is a question here in the front. But you have another? Yeah, okay, go ahead. I tried to take the mic, the loudspeaker.
Bertrand, was Abu Dhabi the starting point?
Yes.
What are the reasons for choosing Abu Dhabi as the starting point?
There are two reasons. One is that we needed to cross India before the monsoon. So if we started from Switzerland, we would arrive too late. And if we started from India or from China, we could not come back in summer. So that was the reason. So we had to start from the Gulf area. And we chose Abu Dhabi because Abu Dhabi is very interested in diversification of energy. Abu Dhabi has the Masdar Institute that is investing a lot in renewables. The latest solar power plants installed in Saudi Arabia is funded by Masdar. So we were very much welcomed. They knew since years that they have to diversify if they want to survive.
Thank you.
Can we have the next question?
Yes. Sir, how do we contribute for the 1,000 solutions? As an undergraduate student, if we are ambitious to do something for the 1,000 solutions,
Okay.
on what part do we focus on?
Yeah. So we take as members companies, startups, universities, but not individuals. So they have to be structured into an organization where there is a product, a process, a program, a technology that can improve something in the environment, but in a profitable way. Not something that will destroy the economy, not something that will need subsidies. So if you have, like I said for the fan, a new type of engine you can install in fans to save energy and you want to put this on the market, you can come as a member of the World Alliance. You can be selected into the 1,000 solutions. And when we approach governments, it will be in the list of what we would suggest for energy saving, for example. And I was really astonished to see the creativity of the startups in India. It's wonderful. It goes from absorbing methane to turn it into protein, to take the silkworms after using the silk to make omega-3 medication, you know, instead of having all this residue that pollute everywhere, a system that is purifying water. You know, in Bangalore, you're on a tableland, so you need to pump the water all the time. And if you throw away the dirty water, you need to pump new water again. So this startup has a system with electric fields that purifies the water, and you install it for really cheap into buildings, and you can use the same water again, even to drink it. So you not only save water, you save the energy of pumping new water. So all these things are so clever, just so clever. And we would like everybody in the world to be able to be aware of all the solutions that people have in their startups or in their companies.
Thank you, sir.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Sir, you said with solar cells, solar power, you can technically fly continuously without break. Does this cell have any shelf lives, or does it require to be changed after certain time, or does it lose its efficiency?
Solar cells have a very long lifetime. It's interesting to see that the solar cells that were tested in 1970 are still working today. They don't get worn. So sometimes you will change them because you have much more efficient solar cells that come now on the market. But they can really last for a long time. And after their lifetime, you recycle them. You know, at the end, silicon in the solar cells, it is sand that is melted. So this is not polluting. Of course, you have some special rare earth and some special metals, but this has to be recycled.
Good evening, Doctor. I was curious to know how did the shift from being a psychiatrist to solar impulse happen?
Yes. If I was an engineer, I would know that solar impulse is impossible. So it was better to be a psychiatrist. But you know, for me as a medical doctor, the goal is to improve quality of life around me. And with Solar Impulse, it's exactly what I try to do. And with the World Alliance, it's the same thing. And Solar Impulse Foundation, it's the same thing. I try to heal the addiction of the world to fossil energy with clean technologies. Clean technology for me is a therapy to cure the addiction of the world on fossil energy.
How did you manage to sell your idea to experts, though you are not an expert from that field?
Well, you know, I was explorer and psychiatrist at the same time. I started actually by doing hang gliding and aerobatic hang gliding. Why that? Because as a teenager, I was afraid of height. And I was thinking I have to treat myself. And when I started to do aerobatic with hang gliders, I noticed how much more performance you can get, how much more inner resources you can get if you get out of your comfort zone. When you're in your comfort zone, you do nothing new, you do nothing better. It's only when you are challenged by the risk that you have to be aware and fully conscious of what you're doing. So I learned to deal with risk in a much better way than before. And then I started to think, that's fantastic. Maybe I could adapt this to therapy. So I became a medical doctor and a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist after I was a hang glider pilot. And then I started to mix everything to be explorer, psychiatrist, pilot, but all the time with like a compass in my head or my heart that was showing the unknown. Not the north, but the unknown, what had never been done. So each time there was an opportunity to try something, the needle was showing it and I was trying. So finally it was really a state of mind.
So I think now we will take the last question for today's session.
So, how the startups can contact you for their innovative ideas? Is there any regional center here? Regional center? Is there any center available in India, or is it like through website we can contact you?
Through solarimpulse.com. Solarimpulse.com. You arrive on the page that explains the Solar Impulse Foundation, the World Alliance, and you have all the explanation to subscribe as a member and how to submit your solution. And if you have any questions, you have SwissNex, which is the technological consulate of Switzerland, that is in Bangalore, that can also answer questions. They are always in relation with startups and with innovative companies here.
So one more question. How soon these commercial aircrafts can use the solar energy?
Today, I think that commercial airplanes will not necessarily use solar energy to fly because you will need to have wings that are too big. But maybe there will be a paradigm shift that will make it happen. But the first step will be airplanes that charge their batteries on the ground. Solar cells will not be on the wings, they will be on the roof of the airport or wherever. providing the solar energy. You charge your battery, and you fly for a couple of hours with 50 passengers. This will happen, I tell you, it will happen in 8 years and 5 months. Because, I tell you why, so precise, because 1 year and 7 months ago I said in 10 years. So the countdown has started.
Thank you.
Most welcome.
So I think now we'll end the session here. I thank the audience for the questions. It is said, an ignited mind is the most powerful weapon on the earth, above the earth and under the earth. And this can be achieved through education, knowledge, and innovation. A real convergence of education, knowledge, and innovation is Dr. Piccard. The session was amazing, and I'm sure would have motivated many of us to be innovative like him, respecting the environment and our earth. On behalf of each one of us present here, I take this opportunity to thank him for visiting us and making this session extremely memorable. Now, I request our Vice Chancellor to kindly felicitate him and hand over a memento as a token of appreciation. Again, we thank you for this session. Thank you so much. We hope to have you again with us for one more session. Thank you so much. I thank the audience for joining us. Thank you so much for taking out time and attending this session. May we request Lorena and Christopher to kindly come in front of the stage.